Hello and welcome. Good morning. This is the youth panel segment, and I'm Dayo, Ephraim, and I've got very beautiful looking people in the studio today. You want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Ese.
I'm Charles.
And I'm Nneoma.
Okay, so now the presidential elections has truly been one of a kind in the history of Nigerian politics, and the whole world, not just Nigeria, awaits the results hopefully today. But before then, we want to talk about the youth and how we feel the youth will be a tool for change in Nigeria. And what better people to talk about this than Nne, Charles, and Ese? Ese, you want to go first and tell us your thoughts on the elections and how you think it will impact the youth in Nigeria?
I think the election was a very, as you said, interesting exercise. I think the rest of Africa can definitely take some insight from the way it was conducted. It was relatively peaceful. There were some deaths. There were some unfortunate incidents. And there are some accusations of rigging. But for the most part, I do want to say that it was a smooth contest. I don't know how much of an impact it will have for the youth. If there's continuity, if Jonathan is reelected, then, you know, what really changes? You know, promises are made, you know, things are said, but it's like, what's concrete? You know, what's been concrete for the last 6 years? If Buhari is elected, I can't speak with any certainty that there'll be any, you know, changes for the youth in a positive way either. You know,
I can actually speak on that in his manifesto. So actually, the person who didn't really include, PDP's manifesto didn't really include anything about the youth or education or unemployment. But Buhari seemed to have touched on it a little bit. So some points from his manifesto is embark on a vocational training, entrepreneurial skills, and acquisition scheme for graduates, along with the creation of small business loan guarantee scheme, which will create 1 million jobs every year. When it came to education, he'll be establishing technical colleges and vocational centers in each state of the Federation and make learning experiences more meaningful for children and cost-effective, as well as developing and promoting effective use of innovative teaching methods and materials in school. So it seems like Buhari kind of has a solid plan to really benefit the youth. When I looked at PDP's manifesto, I didn't really see too much about education or anything directed to the youth or that will affect the youth directly. So,
you know, the thing is, talking about Jonathan and how he engaged the youth, I seem to have a problem with the fact that he always comes up towards the campaign period. Like, I know he engaged the youth in some youth forum sometime in Lagos just before the elections.
was it with Davido?
No, it was. I think it was somewhere in a hotel in Lagos, and there were thousands of people that actually thousands of youth that showed up for that conference. And I'm like, why is it always towards when you want to get reelected or towards your campaign period? But when you're in office, you really do next to nothing that concerns the youth. And unemployment is one of the major issues we have to talk about as well that concerns the youth. And I think Charles will want to go on that one.
I think first of all, I'll answer your question about why Jonathan doesn't bother with the youth outside campaign season, and that's because a lot of young people in Nigeria aren't engaged with the political process. They're frustrated. They're not impressed with how the parties behave. They don't feel they're adequately represented, and so there's no onus really on the political parties to reflect the youth. I'm sure if you look at membership percentages in those parties, I don't think the youth make up a large percentage, or I'm not even sure a lot of the youth have membership cards from any of the major political parties in Nigeria. So yeah, the youth aren't politically active, and that's why the politicians don't need them, because they're not a constituency that they need to.
So what do you think,
to work on?
What do you think can actually be done to get the youth more involved in politics? Because personally, I think the youth need to be more passionate. I know there are a few youths out there that love politics, but it doesn't just end on, you know, tweeting or going on social media, which a lot of youths get engaged on, and they're like, okay, throwing out their thoughts on there. But we need to actually make that change. What's wrong with having a 40-something-year-old president?
I feel like it's easy to blame young people. Like, it's easy to say, oh, this is the situation and you're not passionate and these are the factors that exist because of you. But I feel like youth are going to every social issue in Nigeria, every issue in general, financial, whatever, is magnified on the youth population. Like, these aren't the people that have jobs. These aren't the people that have homes. These aren't the people that have cars. Like, these are the people struggling to live day to day. So I don't see how we can tell youth, oh, dream about being a politician or dream about being involved in politics when hunger keeps them up at night. And all these factors keep them up at night. Like, it's not, these solutions aren't easy. These situations aren't easy. And it's sad that politicians take advantage of young people when election season comes around. Jonathan should be ashamed of himself, I think. And Buhari, like, as you said about his manifesto, like, that stuff is great. on paper, but that's where it exists right now. Like, there's no telling that it's actually going to happen. Like, and if you have all these ideas, excuse me, for the youth, and there's a sitting president right now, why not share these with him? If it's really about the country and not about politics, why is it only that if we vote APC, things will happen for young people, supposedly on paper? You know, I just feel like there should be more actually done. Like, there are all these older people, they're in politics, they're doing all these things, and it's like, there are young people that make up the majority of the country. The median age in Nigeria, I think, is 18. It's young. These people are young. Like, they're not Jonathan's age. They're not my dad's age. And with all the respect due, you know, and given to these older people, these people that have come before us, there needs to be more. Like, it can't just be, like you said, tweeting and stuff like that, but why can't the older people go to Twitter? Because the youth are passionate and they're on Twitter and they're saying these things. Like, this is their platform. Twitter is free. I tweet every day.
True.
But, you know, like, this is how we can engage in some way. And politicians, I feel like, you know, older people are the generation before us should respect that. They should acknowledge that as a means of discourse for people that are our age.
Well, I think the youth need...
Ooh, real quick. That was a lot.
Very passionate, sir.
That's like a fire.
I think the youth deserve to earn the respect of whoever's in charge, whoever's in power, whoever the older people are. The youth haven't been really engaged in the political process. You don't need to be a politician to be engaged in the political process. All you need to do is register for your PVC, vote, and, you know, keep abreast of what's happening. Every decision made at the federal level, at the state level, at the local government level affects everyone in Nigeria, especially the youth, because we're the ones who are going to be here for the next 50 years. You know, living out the policies, being the guinea pigs for the policies that these people are putting in place right now. So you have to be very. It's simple self-interest, self-preservation to have an interest in the political struggles, in the political events that are going on. And as Essie mentioned earlier, the fact that this election has captured the attention of social media, has captured the imaginations of the youth, you know, in the diaspora, both in Nigeria, is a great thing. The fact that people, whether they're young or not, are taking photos of the results at their polling units and putting them on Twitter. That's awesome. That's youth-led citizen involvement in political process, in the electoral process, making sure that there's no manipulation, there's no rigging. And it also lets people know that what you vote actually has an effect on who's going to get it, who's going to win, on, you know, what the electoral permutations are going to be. That's a great way of pulling people in. What's next is whoever wins has to come up with policies that are actually implementable. I know you mentioned a lot of things that are in Buhari's manifesto, but how's he going to get 20,000 jobs?
Exactly.
Is the government just going to put them on the payroll in the Ministry of Youth Employment? No, you can't do that. You have to figure out ways to incentivize entrepreneurs, figure out ways to incentivize the biggest companies in Nigeria right now, to make them hire more people, to make them give people, you know, better living wages, and to change the narrative, not just about development goals or the MDGs, but about how day-to-day people can earn a living in Nigeria without resorting to illegal, you know, illegal activities. And that I think is the biggest challenge. It's going to be really tough to find a way to do all of these things. You know, manifesto or no manifesto, but we'll see.
Interesting.
Well, for one, I think addressing the fact that, so with the older generations in politics, they don't usually like to pass the torch, and they're very protective and territorial of politics, and they forget that they were once youth at some point. They were just as passionate as we are now. So I feel like incorporating, like you were saying, why can't there be a 40-year-old president? You know, like we're all passionate about the same things. We're all very educated. So I think, for one, passing down the torch and getting more of our insight and seeking our insight is one of the biggest things that needs to be done. Secondly, I'm not saying I'm pro-Buhari. I'm not saying I'm pro-Jonathan. But it starts with putting it on paper. He's not even in office yet. Let's give this guy a chance. All right? I know I don't mean to sound so optimistic, but let's give him a chance first. I mean, looking at the PDP's manifesto, it didn't address youth concerns at all. And at least, you know, there's some youth concerns here. So I feel like let's give him a chance. If this guy gets into office, let's find out whether he can actually begin to start making these changes. Rome was not built in a day. He's cleaning up the mess if he is elected. He's cleaning up the mess of the present, the future, the before presidents, the past presidents. So it's going to take a while. Let's not put too much pressure on him. But I kind of did want to segue into some of the citizen reporters. We reached out to them and asked them what some of their concerns were and what some youth issues were. And some of their answers were, the unemployment rate is leading to robbery, poverty, and other criminal activities. Lack of motivation, lack of counseling and guidance. Lack of support from the government. So once again, it's the biggest issue. They feel as if they're not connected to the government. They feel as if the government doesn't care so much about them. No quality education. That's something that Buhari spoke on in what he was saying. I'm sorry. So he spoke on quality education, how he wants to incorporate that. Bad leadership. So once again, that's with the presidents and the governors in their areas. Laziness and idleness. So a lot of these youth are not motivated. They're not dreaming of being much because they feel as if they don't even have quality education. They don't have the right type of opportunities. They don't have the right type of resources. And youths are becoming thugs for politicians. That was one thing that someone put that surprised me a lot.
That was very
a form of
evident yesterday on social media. You saw places where people were actually being given money during the election process.
Yeah.
And it was majorly the youth that were involved in this. So yes, they're being used as political thugs. And I just personally feel that, we've gotten to a stage now where if Buhari eventually comes in as president, he owes Nigeria. And, because there's so many offices, I know there are a few offices that focus on the youth, but how effective are these offices? And we don't want an office that focuses on the youth having a 70-something-year-old man, as the boss of that office. We want to see young people who are more, passionate, who are more involved with the issues that concerns the youth and Nigeria as a whole.
Can I add in?
Yeah, sure, Charles.
I think deciding on offices that are zoned to the youth is a big mistake, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The problems Nigeria is facing right now are a result of policies that give certain constituencies a hold on certain offices, certain institutions, even without a burden to perform well. So deciding that we're going to have 20%, well, 35%, I think that there was a social media movement for 35% youth at some point last year, is a mistake, because how do you decide to just have 35? Being under 18 is not between 18 and 35 is not a qualification for anything, on its own face, prima facie. So we have to get youth more involved, but not decide that being young is itself an entitlement to anything. If the youth want to get involved, want jobs, we should advocate for candidates. We should advocate for policies that will make those come true. We should advocate for good education. And by that, I don't mean that the government should give you, build a federal government university in your state and give you a free ride. I actually am against free education because I think it incentivizes people to learn the wrong things, or not to make economic decisions about what courses they're going to take, which skills they're going to pick up. And so you end up having these people who've been to university but haven't learned any marketable skills, haven't learned any skills that fit Nigeria's economic position and comparative advantage in the world. So we have to be really careful not to make the mistake of just tacking on the youth as another constituency to be fed, as another, as another group of people that need to share in the national cake just because we want some cake. The point is to get the youth meaningfully and progressively involved in building the economy, in building an equitable and building a just society in Nigeria. It's not to add us to the list of vultures feeding off of the carcass.
Well,
with regards to education, will that be the reason why lots of people decide to go overseas to study and not stay in Nigeria? Do you think that the educational system in Nigeria has tolerated so much that people who can afford to send their children outside the country to study will rather do that than have their students, their children study in Nigeria.
Well, yeah, because of the quality of education. Also, the fact that their children and their kids can't even get into school there. So we have no choice but to send them internationally. But I wanted to talk about your point of not believing that there should be free education. I didn't really understand why you felt like people are going to take advantage of that and
No,
abuse
not
that,
take
or?
advantage of that, but they're going to inadvertently make the wrong choices. If I'm going to get into the Federal University in Katsina, and just because I'm 18 to 35, I'm from Katsina, and how am I going to make the decision to study computer science? So when I could just go there, study actuarial science or study, there is a room for courses like sociology et al., but what you need to grow your economy are marketable, skills, technical skills. And, studying, I'm a political science major myself, but I wouldn't advise anyone to study political science in Nigeria. You have to pick a course, one that has economic value to you throughout your life. You also have to pick a course that, depending on how big and how developed and how mature the sector that course prepares you for in your country is going to benefit you. And I think free education doesn't do that. And it puts a huge burden on the government to keep to pay out sums of money that the government isn't really going to benefit, that is wasted, because you're funding activities that aren't going to achieve the purpose that you think they will achieve.
I think that, not agreeing with free education, I just think that whole, free education is important. In every country, there's free education. Brazil, you can go to school completely for free, graduate, postdoc, everything. France, Europe, there are countries, in Europe where you can get a free education. And those countries, are they doing worse than Nigeria? Yes or no? Yes or no?
They're not.
I asked a yes or no question. I just feel like what will
Free
happen?
education is
What will
not the
happen to
reason
the Nigerian
Brazil has a
artist
better
or the
economic
Nigerian
performance than
musician
Nigeria.
or the Nigerian creative that's told, you know what, to be anything in this life, you have to be in econ, in marketing, in business, in any of this? A whole group of people, a whole set of people with different. That's what you're saying, Charles.
If you have creative talent, if you have the talent to be a musician, given how developed Nigeria's entertainment sector is, if you have what it takes, by all means, go and be a Davido, be a Wizkid, and that's awesome. That's awe-inspiring. But you shouldn't just have everyone flock towards studying music, even without the talent.
This is down now to a particular thing you want to study, but we're looking at you saying you're not in support of free education.
So
we have to consider the economic state of Nigeria. How many people can actually afford to pay for school in Nigeria?
And this is why I want to jump into this. So I'm not really understanding how free education correlates to a bad outcome and bad decisions, because I feel like a lot of us growing up, our parents tell us you must be a doctor, you must be a nurse, you must be this, because it's giving back to the world and the society. But I feel like education is something that's personal. It's something that you want to study. If it's your passion, by all means, go and do it. I don't think that people shouldn't study music or art or whatever because it's not able to give directly back to the country. I feel like people should be able to have their own choices of school and what they want to study. And free education, like you guys said, free education, like everyone said, it's a lot of people can't afford education. Let's at least get them in the door. Let's get them those resources and find out what they'll do from the country after that.
Since 1980, we've been getting people in the door, and what has the result been? I'm saying
let's not look at the past. Let's look at the future. The future is different. It's a whole new time now.
Even with the fact that our national revenue from oil is tanking, the government should really have a think about its spending priorities, and I don't think free education should be on the list. I think you can definitely incentivize people to learn certain things. You can implement scholarships, but you shouldn't just have education. You shouldn't just have education free of charge. People need to at least pay as much as they can. You have to give a value to education. for it to work. How are you even going to pay for good teachers if it's all just going to be a burden on the government?
I have a
There's
question.
160 million people at least in Nigeria.
What's your question, Essay?
My question is, and I asked Charles this before, France, Europe, England,
Sweden.
that are offering, Germany that's offering free education. Yes or no, are the youth doing worse there than Nigerian youth or better? It's just a yes or no question. Countries that are offering, this is a fact, free education, and youth doing better or worse in these countries, that's also a fact. Like how are they doing? And how can you blame free education on that? Yes, I do agree with you that the education system needs to be restructured, but if I can't afford to go to school, I'm not going. It's not a thought. I'm not thinking about being an economics major if I can't get into a university to even be a culinary arts major or whatever else. Like, I'm gonna end up selling toothpicks or doing whatever, to survive, because it becomes about survival. Like, once there's no access to something, I'm not gonna say, well, you know what, this is not the government's fault, this is my fault. The $10 that I do have should go to me paying tuition, even if I can only attend class for one day and can't afford books and have to remember. It's nuts. Like, free education is a good idea.
The people who got free education essay are still unemployed. So it is not a matter. Unemployment isn't because they didn't.
It starts with education.
It starts with good education. It starts with quality education.
But you can
and
have
quality.
a good
You
free
can't have
education.
quality education that's free
That's not
education.
true, Charles.
The thing with education is whether education is free or not, at the end of the day, it's about what you choose to do as an individual.
Yeah.
You can go to school and get that education, or go to school and the school doesn't pass through you. And that's one of the reasons that's one of the things that actually affects the youth in Nigeria. We say there's so much unemployment, people are not employed here and there. But at the end of the day, when you say, okay, I want to hire this person for this particular position, you just realize that this person knows next to nothing on that particular, skill you're trying to hire him or her for. And this boils down to the fact that they actually went to school, they're graduates, but they don't know anything about that field.
And they probably went to a free school that isn't working well. That
Not
isn't delivering the
necessarily,
quality of
not
education
necessarily being a
necessary.
free school. Not necessarily being
They
a free
probably
school.
went to. Oh wow, Charles! Wow, you're surprising me now. But I honestly feel like you're one in very few who believe that Nigeria shouldn't have free education.
My argument is not even a. It's not a normative argument. I'm talking about outcomes. When education is free,
Where are the statistics for this?
How are
Where
you
getting
going
your
to
information
support-
From? Where are the statistics? Where's the information from?
Where's
How
the
did you
information?
come up with the idea that free education results in bad outcomes and bad decisions?
let's start with the Action Group, which is a political party in the 50s and 60s in Nigeria.
Okay.
And part of one of the policy agenda of that group was free education. Especially then in 1979, the Action Group came back. Now it was called the UPN, and it implemented free primary education across the southwestern states.
Okay.
The quality of Nigerian education, if we'll go by, what we can take as not just anecdotal information, but like a trend that has been identified by many observers, started to go down in the 1980s. So we're looking at the government is having to pay a lot for primary education. How many young kids are there? The government is having to pay a lot for free secondary education. And how does that now transfer onto those institutions that the government actually has to maintain? The universities. How are you going to get the government to fund to get good teachers?
We can actually go on and on and on education today, but
Yes.
okay, I feel like we should actually focus on the elections.
Okay.
With regards to what happened yesterday, what would you say about the involvement of the youth on the elections? Do you think the turnout was good enough, or, what are your thoughts?
I think that a lot of youth were involved in many different ways. The youth service students, they were a part of like everything that was going on. They were counting votes. I saw that a lot of people that went out to the polls, they were young. A lot of the citizen journalists are young, and they're participating in a lot of different ways that I think get overlooked. I want to take a moment to recognize Sahara reporters, citizen journalists, because I think that they provide a perspective on the election that hasn't been seen, and it's the perspective of a young person, of a person that isn't of, the 1% or a high class or an elitist or whatever. I think that these are people who are citizens. They're journalists also as well, and those two things aren't mutually exclusive. Like, you can report on your experience and just be, a regular person. And I think that their perspectives on this election are interesting. I think the question being asked that will this election have any benefit either way, Jonathan or Buhari, for the youth? You know, I know that 300 and something girls are still missing. You know, we have these issues, there are these concerns, and they're tied up politically now, but there are issues that affect young people. So I don't know. Personally, I have no faith in Jonathan. I don't know if I can trust that Buhari will deliver on his promises. I acknowledge them, and I think that they're important things, but I just feel like anyone can say anything. Jonathan said he would create some millions of jobs or something like that, and it's like, how do you create jobs? Like, everyone wants to know, every country in the world wants to know how we can just create jobs for youth and empower youth in different ways, but who's actually doing it? You know, what words are said on part of Buhari or on part of anyone in his campaign that are really like, young people, someday we'll die and you'll be here and inherit everything, you know, that exists. Our problems and your solutions will have to kind of find a middle ground. But is there any empowerment? Are we giving you anything, you know, as young people? Like, I know my parents, they won't live forever, but I'll take care of them, you know, till their last days. And it's like, I believe that the youth of Nigeria can do that for this country. I believe that they can take care of this country, but they're not being entrusted with that responsibility. And it's like, it's not a privilege, you know, to be involved in the discourse that's shaping the country, involved in the narrative that's shaping the country. It's a right. Eventually, I'll be 50, or I'll be 60, or I'll be however old, and I'll be either part of the problem or the generation that solved it. So, my 2 cents.
Ooh, chills.
Which
That was a
something
great
actually
quote. Can we quote that?
Spoke about really having the youth involved in offices. I bet to the phone what you spoke about, Charles, saying they shouldn't, you know, be the heads of these offices. I feel they should be the heads because if I can't relate to you as an old man, part of my old man now. Most of these old men don't even know what's going on in the lives of the youth.
Yeah,
but
so
if we have a youth who's representing us in these offices, I think that he'll be more relatable. She'll be more relatable, and we'll know how to tackle these issues that concern us.
Well, Nigeria's already divided across ethnic and religious lines. You don't need to add an age line, you know, to the mix. And I think what Essie has said, the youth, we're the majority in the Nigerian population, and we need to be involved. But we don't need to ask someone to involve us. We need to get ourselves involved. And how do you do that? Well, join the political party or create a political party. And think about what policies you would like. You don't need to transform every federal government university or transform the level of education across the country all at once. Start from your local government. Get all the youths from Eseosa to local government. Start thinking about the issues that affect you in that local government. Whether it's the roads, whether it's the primary schools,
Whether it's health.
Yeah, whether it's health, you know, and do something, organize.
I think
And that's not
doing
something
a lot.
that you need. That's something that you need Jonathan or Buhari to give you a manifesto or to give you the 2 choices that you can pick. Think about it for yourselves. I mean, this is a problem across a wide portion of Nigeria. But we need to start thinking for ourselves. We need to start analyzing our own agency and what role we can play. And you don't need to jump to a national level immediately. Think about, in my local government, in my ward, on my street, what can I do? What can the other youth that live on my street do? What can we organize ourselves and take? You don't wait on Buhari, don't wait on Jonathan, don't wait on Tinubu, don't wait on a governor. Do it yourselves.
I think the youth are actually trying their best to do what they can, but their hands are somewhat tied. Because if I have to go by what I saw on social media yesterday, 70% of most of the tweets and the posts we got on Instagram and Facebook were from the youth. By the end of the day, that's how they can speak out. But are they being given the opportunity to actually have access to these offices to make that impact?
You know what
that we need
I'll
in
say to
Nigeria?
that, though? I think that there's power in numbers. And the fact that the majority of the population in Nigeria are, the majority of the population are youth. So if we're showing up to these campaigns and we're showing up with posters, we're showing up with what we believe in, if we're going to every single one of these government offices, if we're creating groups and then a group in one state will combine their beliefs with the group of another state, and if we're just connecting with each other and sharing our views on like a social media group or a Facebook group or something like that, then I feel like our voices will be heard more. It'll attract attention. You know, if we're making these Facebook pages or these Twitter pages, social media may just be the way to go with this. So if we're talking about this, then I feel like it'll eventually start to catch attention and people will begin to hear us. So I think that's one way to start.
I mean, you've said it. Engagement on social media is step one. There's a lot of other steps to go, and we need to start thinking about taking those steps.
Talking about social media, you actually have some of these politicians on social media as well. Because we saw pictures from Atiku, we saw pictures from Fashola, saw pictures from Agbaje yesterday on Instagram. And it was very interesting to actually see them posting these pictures and making people understand that they just got accredited, they just voted. And I'm sure they're equally trying to tap into the power of social media, which I think we as the youth need to enhance ourselves together and say, okay, fine, we're going to actually use this as a tool to reach out to not just Nigeria, but the world. Because at the end of the day, the entire world is watching. Don't you think so?
Yeah.
I agree.
Great.
I think that it's amazing that from a journalistic perspective that you can go on Twitter or on Facebook and click on a hashtag and like a whole conversation opens up. Like whether you're from one political side or not, like you can have a complete picture shaped from hashtag Nigeria decides, hashtag vote report Nigeria, hashtag just voted. All these things, like, they connect people. And it's like, even I know people that work at international media houses, the big media houses of the world, they're looking for those, they're looking at those things. They're seeing who the influencers are. Like, we've earned the right to be influencers on social media. Why would we wait for CNN to report on Nigeria, report on the political dynamic when citizens are doing it? People are doing it. CNN can look at what we're doing and take from it, In the media, when you have a stringer, you have a stringer that's, funneling the story from the source to the outlet. Now the stringers are doing the journalism. Now they're speaking. We don't need CNN to say, no, I saw an article, 7 wacky things you need to know about the Nigerian election. I could tell you more than 7 things, wacky and otherwise. And I just feel that our participation in the media is critical. Like, the pen is actually mightier than the sword, but now we have more than pens. We have pencils, we have computers, we have laptops, we have iPads, we have tablets, WhatsApp, Kick, BBM, everything exists and everything can empower us in different ways. Like, our voices are, look at Bring Back Our Girls. It just started as a hashtag, a few people were doing it, and then it blew up. Michelle Obama in the White House, thousands of miles away from Nigeria, was now a part of that discussion. And that's Nigerians doing that. That's women doing that.
We need to translate this social media movement into action. The girls are not back. And the fact that that action on Twitter, action on Instagram brought that to the attention of political office holders and power holders across the world is great. It's an awesome step, but we need to find channels, not only to make them notice us, not only to make them see us, not only to make us hear us, but to actually to listen and to do what we say. And the way to do that, I think, is to get more involved in the electoral process, join a political party, run for offices from that party. Or, if you can't find political parties as they exist that will further your interest, create one. Why is there no all youth political party, AYPP, in Nigeria? Why is there no young political party in Nigeria? We're waiting for that.
Science, right? Do you have any plans of going into politics at some point?
Do I have any plans of going into politics? I have plans of being engaged, of voting, of making my opinions heard, and if at some certain point there's a role that fits a policy that I admire, a role where you can become part of an institution where you have actual support and you can do. Yeah, I would engage. I would get involved. I would be active, try and mobilize support. But I think right now, the next step is to mobilize support. The next step is to mobilize action. Then we should stop thinking about trying to replace, trying to get youth in the House of Representatives, get youth in the House of, in the Senate, or in any of those executive offices. We should start thinking about making those in the executive offices, whether they're youth or not, run policies that would benefit the youth. And how you do that is by voting for them or by not voting for them.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're about to wrap up, but before we go, we're all awaiting the final results of the election. So I want each and every one of you to give your closing remarks on your expectations from the results? I'll start with Ni.
Well, I just want Buhari to do what he said he was going to do. I think it's great that he mentioned it in the manifesto, and I hope that he actually carries on with that. So that's all I got to say.
So I'm, expecting both parties to do well in their strongholds, and we'll see what happens. But in the end, we need to take a look not just at the presidency, but at all levels of government, including local government.
Right.
My expectation is that the result is received, safely, that people don't resort to violence if their candidate isn't elected, and that they remember, once this result is received, that Nigeria will be fine, like the country will be fine. Like Nigerians are resilient, and like whatever happens either way, whether it's a candidate that someone was for or against, the country will be okay and people will be okay. Hopefully.
Great. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. And please feel free to follow us on Twitter, Instagram at Sahara Reporters, and let's hear your views on the youth panel segment. Thank you so much.